I'm doing good. Actually, I mean, honestly, I'm a little tired, but I am very much looking forward to this. I I like answering questions and talking with folks. Um, and and I hope we can do this more often even.
I'd like to check in with chat, make sure our audio settings are correct, because normally I don't. It's just me talking, and we don't have two sets of people talking, so I want to make sure everybody can hear both of us. Uh, Audio is good, great. We're gonna hope that we don't suddenly in the middle start duplicating audio like we did that one time. But other than that, I think we're just gonna dive right into some questions. As always, if you have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. Tim and I are, I think, experts, almost professionals at going on tangents.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I have a story about that.
Yeah, go.
No, but I do want to say thank you to everybody for jumping in. And I know sometimes it can be awkward or hard to ask questions, but please do feel free to to ask anything that's on your mind. Really.
Yeah, actually, I speaking of tangents and going in a straight line, I'm gonna skip that for a second. Skip the questions for a second. I want to mention that earlier today, just a couple hours ago, on the website we implemented Judge Search, which means you can now look up various certified judges. We strongly recommend that if you want to be found, make sure that your name and location are visible. Absolutely not a requirement. Make sure that you're comfortable with what you're sharing on the internet and all of that good stuff. But now you or stores can start to find judges, or you can start to find judges in your local area so you can do meetups, find mentors and peers and that sort of thing.
Jonah, can I want to word that even more strongly.
Yes.
For this to work over the long term, tournament organizers and prospective tournament organizers need judges. If you choose not, it is always your decision to not share any of your information, right? That's up to you. More power to you. You get to make choices with your life. And I would not want to take some choices away. But if you want to be a judge and you don't make it so you can be found by tournament organizers, then how the hell are the tournament organizers going to do their job and staff judges? And with prior judge programs that I've worked with, this was a huge problem. So please think about it. If you don't want to work with a TO, an individual TO, just tell them no. But if you don't want TOs to find you or anybody in the community to find you, that's okay. But if you want to be found, click the little box.
Yep. It's especially important for endorsements. This is down the line, people will search for you, find your profile by searching for you, and then they'll be able to endorse you or write reviews from there. It's where if you apply to an event, a tournament organizer will look you up, and they want to know who they're hiring. They want to know your name and where you're from. They don't want to hire Muskrat from, I don't know, when they don't know if I'm traveling 10 feet or across the planet, and there might be some more logistical questions. They want to know who they're hiring.
And we don't want you to, and I don't even think there's a way to make your physical address public, but your city would help. But the important part is your name, right? So that they can find you. And what I want to be able to do. So there's a big trade, big. There is a important trade show for our industry for tabletop games coming up in the first of the year, called the Gamma Trade Show. I'm going to go to Gamma, and part of what I'm going to be doing is meeting with tournament organizers and retailers, who I guess are tournament organizers too, and talking to them about how to get Star Wars events running in your store. And if you don't make your information discoverable to tournament organizers, what will happen is I will be like, hey, we've got this great tool to connect you with judges, and then they won't find you and they won't find judges, and then I look like a dork for telling people that I have a tool that helps people do the thing, right? So if you don't make it findable, then we're not adding the value we should as a judge program. I look stupid and you don't get work. So kind of bad.
Yeah, one of the things that we're planning on doing is a question at the end of the test for level 1, which says, I want to set these things to public or visible to tournament organizers only. You don't have to, of course, it is not a pass-fail question, it's not a part of the test, but it's on there just to make sure that as you're going through it, when you get your certification, it's put in front of you and you are very aware of what this can do.
Jonah, I think I failed that question because I'm being too negative. What I'm trying to do is say, please make your stuff visible. And the positive way to word it is, if you make your information visible, then people can find you and hire you to work events, right?
Yeah.
And the whole tangent about if you don't do this, this is what will happen is true, but probably not what I want to lead with.
Right. I mean, it's for some reason easier for me to remember people by names than handles, and it's more consistent, I think, in naming schema because it doesn't have numbers that frequently or underscores, I think, and also a lot of people in the professional world, it's just nice to know who you're talking with. But do you have any other announcements about things that folks have been waiting for a while?
I do.
Oh.
I don't know if we want to jump into questions first, but sure. Hey, there there was a series of printing snags on the judge shirts. The batch of judge shirts that was ordered, it turned out they were out of stock with the distributor that serves them. So there's a printer, and upstream of the printer is a distributor who gets the shirts from the manufacturer. The distributor was out of the blank shirts that we needed, which created months of delay. The distributor has got the shirts to the printer, and then the printer got them to me today. Now, that will be for the first couple, like 100. I received 171 shirts today. Okay, there will be a few people, the most recent people who have ordered that I can't fulfill yet. We've got another batch coming, but it's coming much faster. So shirts are coming. My plan is to spend most of the day tomorrow. I spent all day today while I was waiting for the shirts to arrive, assembling cardboard boxes and slipping Luke Invaders into penny sleeves and then putting them in a hard case. So, and everything's been inventoried. I have the right sizes. So starting tomorrow morning when I get in, I will be printing labels and sending these off. It's probably a 2 or 3 day thing for me. So don't expect them all to come out. Don't expect them all to come out, come out tomorrow. But over the next 2 or 3 days, we'll be shipping out hundreds of shirts.
Awesome. Alrighty. Now to the questions. We're 10 minutes in and we can get to the first question.
Well, you did warn everybody we do in fact go on tangents sometimes.
I did. It's a habit, and it's a good one.
And I think the people on this in particular are likely to want to know where their shirts are, right?
Yes, absolutely. Alrighty. So question number 1, right off the top. These are just asked in the order that I received them, and if you folks have questions in the chat, again, drop them in there, and we'll be happy to go on tangents. So, can new players and new candidates still take the test and sign up to be a judge?
Yes. Do you want to say anything about that other than the words yes?
Yeah, I do. Yes is the simple and straightforward answer. Right now, the only test that you can take is the Judge Apprentice test, and it is a one-time sort of deal because we only have those 20 questions. While we're working on the level 1 test, I am also working on broadening the pool for the Judge Apprentice test so it can be retaken. But there is no...
Wait, hold on. You should explain what that means, like more detail.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Why can I not take the test again? Why do you need to create extra questions?
Right. So right now, with just those 20 questions, once you've taken the test, taking it again isn't quite an accurate evaluation of your knowledge of the game. It's an evaluation of your knowledge of the 20 questions that you have already seen. One of the things that we're doing by creating a question pool, it does 2 things. One, with, say, 40 or 60 questions, it means that you'll be able to take the test multiple times without seeing the same question. which means that you'll still be able to be tested on your general knowledge and it'll still be a useful test. And it means that different candidates will have different tests. They'll have different questions presented to them each time. While there may be some overlap, it means that while this is very unlikely to happen, you won't accidentally spill a question to somebody and then it shows up on their test, or in the case of a malicious actor, somebody intentionally sharing a test and then the next person acing it, having question pools, randomizing the order, that sort of thing. We don't think anything bad is going to happen. You are generally a trustworthy lot, but mitigating the ease and accessibility of those sorts of behaviors is something that we get from having a larger question pool.
And in the meantime, because I get this question at questions at Cascade all the time, if you did not pass the apprentice test, or for that matter, if you didn't take the apprentice test, as soon as the level 1 test goes live, you do not have to take the apprentice in order to become a level 1. Yeah. It's a good idea. It's great learning for you. It's great calibration. There are people who I have friends who were certain that they're ready to go up, boom, 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 and level, and then they took the apprentice test and didn't pass. So that it's a great self-check, but it is not required.
It also it's a good way to see what questions are like, see how they're structured, and so a little bit of practice. And it exists so that down the line when the game is even larger, there are a lot of people who are maybe interested in becoming a judge, and it's a good way to dip your toe into the water.
Okay. I want to mention something about level 1 as well.
Yeah.
Which is the level 1 material is study material is live, and the level 1 test is coming very, very soon. We have ran into some, let's just call it imperial entanglements, but see what I did?
Yeah.
But yeah, but we expect it very, very soon, and fingers crossed, very, very soon.
A notable expansion on this, we keep on talking, unsurprising. Even if we have, say, 200 questions in the level 1 testing pool or in the apprentice testing pool, there will still be a cooldown between attempts. We don't want you to take the test, fail, and then later that day or the next day try again. The idea is that if you don't pass, we want you to take some time to look at the questions that you got wrong, figure out what areas you need to improve on, and then spend some time studying and taking the test again. On launch, those cooldowns are going to be a little bit longer, just so that we have more time to build up question pools. As the system is more robust, Apprentice, I think, will probably end up at roughly a month or a couple of weeks for cooldown, whereas level 1 will be a couple months to maybe 6 months at the end of, when the system is completely mature. And we have our first question from chat, from Tennessee. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, from Tennessee Feet Monk. Was there any thought of starting with a level 3 test and basing levels 1 and 2 on how well you did on the level 3 test? Horrible idea in my opinion, but I know Magic's original judge test did something like this, though I don't know why. You want me to take
Go ahead.
This one? Yeah.
You know what, actually, I think, I'm going to answer this, and then I'm going to let Jonah answer it, because we did not, in fact, have long discussions of this, but I can tell you my reason why I didn't even consider this option. Okay. And it actually gets back, it kind of dovetails onto what Jonah was saying about the apprentice test. Okay. And why cooldowns are important. I don't think that one should consider oneself as a particular level. Okay. I think judge tests are tools to help you learn and to help you measure where your skills are on that day, right? We all have good days. We have bad days. I mean, I have blood sugar issues, right? If I took a test on the wrong day, I might fail it completely, and it would not actually be an accurate reflection of my knowledge. So instead of getting hung up on the test and thinking the test is an accurate measurement. Let's use the test as a learning tool. Also, on top of that, and maybe I'm stealing some of Jonah's thunder here, but levels beyond level one, I think as you go further and further up, social skills, understanding how to handle work with people, understanding tournament logistics, all of those things play a larger and larger role as you grow as a judge. And I don't think it's particularly, I don't think this is viable. I mean, we could create a test that would tell you where you are in relationship to the rules knowledge and the game theory relative to other folks, right? But when it comes time to give people a a level of level 3 and 4 5 beyond that, we need to do individualized testing. We need to do something. I mean, I'm going to call it in person, but it's actually, over the internet. But we need interviews and we need personalized testing. And I don't think that one test that sorts from level 1 all the way up to 3 is I don't think it would be successful.
Yeah.
In doing what we want to do. Okay, Jonah,
Two
I'm sure you
short
got a
things
bunch.
to add on. One, let's say we start by creating a level 3 test, and then if you get 100%, you're a level 3, 80% you're a level 2, and 60% you're a level 1. That isn't really an accurate model of what makes a good level 1. Having 60% of the knowledge of a level 3 makes you somebody with 60% of the knowledge of a level 3, not a level 1. And this is because the way this sort of thing works is it's built on foundational knowledge. And so if we have the level 3 exam is going to be more focused on complex and rare scenarios, and it's not going to address common and straightforward rules interactions. And you need to know those as a level 1 judge, and to get to level 3, you also need to know those, but you've passed the level 1 test, which has demonstrated that you do. The level 3 test is going to be asking questions about 4 different cards that have weird text all interacting with each other. The level 1 test says, how does the regroup phase work, right? And so the level 3 test doesn't actually test for what we care about for a level 1 judge. It just tests more esoteric knowledge, among other things. And so you need to test for that foundation first.
That's a great answer.
All right. Another question from chat from the Moy. Did Cascade Games have any input on the decision to partner with Melee for tournament software?
Did we have, you know what? That's a great question. There was not a formal process. I know some of the folks at Melee extraordinarily well, right? I like to think I'm certainly friends. I don't know, friends for years, like decades with some of the folks at Melee. And so I was at that time, it's probably not wise for me to set a precedent of saying what I've lobbied for and what I haven't, but I was 100% focused to whatever degree I had any influence at all of not using a home-baked system, using somebody who has a professional, somebody who has a company like Melee doing tried and true battle tested software. That's what I want. Honestly, I like Melee. I would have been happy with Best Coast pairings. I would have been happy with, there's 3 or 4 things. I mean, Mickey Urban, who is the principal designer of Konami's system, right? He does that as a freelance person. If we had done that, I would have been fine with that too. So there's lots of answers. I don't think any software platform's perfect. I just, but tournament software is, for such a discrete task, is so unbelievably complicated. And I'm not a programmer, but I've seen it go wrong over and over again. And so I don't know. hopefully that got what this person was asking for. But for me, anybody's pre-existing system that's been used for years is a good answer.
Yeah,
And creating your own is a bad answer, I think.
I think so. Yeah. Alrighty. Coming up from chat again.
Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, we should probably ask the chat person if that got them the answer they wanted,
Yeah.
or if they were.
Demoy, let us know if that answers your question. Yep, we got an appreciation. And yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty. Another question from chat from Nilrem54. What is the best way to get a recommendation from a tournament organizer, and how do I use it on my profile?
Jonah, I think this is something for you to talk about because you're working more closely than I am with our programmer. So,
yes. So I'm going to answer the second part first, which is to say right now there is no way to get an endorsement on your profile. It's one of the things that we're working towards adding. It's the judge search function is one of the steps in getting that live very, very, very soon.
And why is that, Jonah?
So the way that we're going to do it is either a level 2+ judge, which doesn't exist right now, or a tournament organizer will find your profile online. They'll say, I want to write a review or endorsement about this judge. They'll select level 1 endorsement and type something short up. In this case, for level 1, it's, I've seen you run a couple of pre-releases and I'd be happy to have you back in my store to do more. That is more than sufficient for a level 1 endorsement. But it needs to be associated with your account so that we can then give you the permission to take the level 1 test, and so it all shows up and is all done automatically, and it's not me digging through spreadsheets and reaching out to tournament organizers being like, hey, you didn't actually uniquely identify a judge, you just said Joe, and there are a lot of Joes in the judge program across the globe. And so having it built into the system and having it attached to your profile means that it'll all be taken care of on its own without me doing a ton of work and without you and organizers specifically having to do a ton of work. Oh, Tim has a thought.
I have a thought. I'm trying to decide if this is the, you know what? I'm gonna plant a seed, and then we're gonna come back to it later after we answer more of the questions if we can. But to me, there are two really important things about recommendations. And the first one might seem completely trivial to a listener, but to me, it's of utmost importance. It's actually, so the second one is will a tournament organizer say something positive about you? Okay. And, and as Jonah said, it doesn't have to be a super high level of endorsement. We need a thing. But to me, what's much more important for my purposes, and maybe not for what Jonah does, but for my purposes, I want to know that you are in fact a real human being. Okay. And we don't have another good way to sort out what could be a spam account versus a real human being. And I will tell you later on when it's more topical, hopefully towards the end of this AMA, why it's important to me that you're an actual human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to answer the first part, what's the best way to get a recommendation? Ask. Walk into the store, if it's your local game store, particularly if you've worked for them before, and be like, hey, can I have a recommendation? If it's a tournament organizer that's farther away, shoot them an email. If you haven't worked for them before, go in and offer your services. Say, hey, I'm interested in becoming a judge. I have these skills. I've studied these lessons. I'd like to help run weekly play or a pre-release or a showdown. And at the end of it, if you could write me an endorsement, it's about 1 sentence. That would be incredibly helpful, and I can expand my skills and provide more value to you and your players.
But don't do this yet, because 1, we can't support it, and 2, and probably more importantly, we're coming into the holiday season, right? And retailers are going to make 50% or more of their sales for the entire year in November and December, right? So if it's not essential to do it right now, having some consideration for retail tournament organizers, because unless they're your brother-in-law, they're probably not taking time off during the Christmas season, that during the holiday shopping season, because that's what it really is, to do this thing. So, but we should have the software to handle this piece of it very, very soon, right?
Yeah.
We're talking days or weeks, not a long period of time. And to be honest, I really did. Jonah and I debated whether or not we should just hold it back until after Christmas, because we don't want to put a bunch of pressure on tournament organizers. But there are in fact events coming up, and so we do need to get this launched out.
Yep. All right, next question from chat from Wolfstrider562. How does Cascade feel about judges who make videos sharing info about new rules as they are passed on to the judge community?
I love it.
Yeah, I'm delighted. Please.
I don't know how else could I feel about it.
Share them in the Discord. We're happy to give you a signal boost.
For that matter, Jonah doesn't have any spare time, right? Really, he does not. And one of the questions we're going to get to later is, what do we do about the fact that Jonah's, burning the candle at both ends? But if you're a judge and you want to make a video, once Jonah's life calms down, ask Jonah if he wants to be interviewed on your video cast. Ask me, right? We would love to help you build your audience and get the word out.
Yeah, absolutely 100% on board.
In fact, I would, if I had to choose between, just making up numbers, one person with 1,000 people in an audience or 1,000 people who each had one, I would rather to have lots and lots of diverse voices because they will grow and create a healthy ecosystem. So go for it and let us know what we can do to help you.
Great. This is a response to our earlier conversation about levels and testing from Tennessee Feet Monk again. If you need personalized testing for level 3, how are we comfortable allowing apprentices to head judge planetary qualifiers? I understand there isn't a better option right now, but is there concern based on tournament reports and other indicators that there should be more scrutiny?
Well, there's two questions there, which is, how are we comfortable? Well, I would be much, much more comfortable if the judge program had launched before the game did, right? I mean, honestly, if I had a time machine and could do things my preferred way, we would have judge. Actually, for anyone who's publishing any tournament game, I would prefer that the judge program go live before the game is published. And I would love to have higher level judges, but we are where we are. I haven't looked at, and don't have complete access for that matter, although I suppose we could probably get it, but I don't have complete access to the feedback around events. But my sense of that, which is all secondhand, is that overall judges did quite well. I think Jonah did an awful lot of work to screen people, and based on what we were able to do, I think that worked well. I mean, but am I comfortable with this? No, not at all. Not at all. I would like to get where we're going to be 5 years from now. Like 5 years from now, we're going to have a judge program that goes up to level 5. And we're going to have amazing people, and store owners and tournament organizers are going to know who's really good. And for that matter, an awful lot of people are playing Star Wars who haven't played in tournaments before, which I love, but there's a learning curve for them too. And there's a learning curve for Melee, and Melee came online for Star Wars just before the planetary qualifiers, and that's not ideal either. So there's a bunch of things that I would say were not ideal, and it worked really well overall.
Yeah. Over the course of roughly 3,000 players playing in planetary qualifiers, from my estimations, there were admittedly a few major issues raised. But even at tournaments with tournament organizers who have been doing this for decades and judges who have been doing this for decades, 2 issues of that level of significance out of 3,000, or like a handful of issues of that level of significance out of 3,000, is incredibly good. For Season 0, we did put in a little bit more scrutiny than just the Judge Apprentice. We did ask questions about policy, tournament experience, that sort of thing. Something I did recognize through the feedback was that tournament organizers who more closely followed the recommendations from FFG generally had better experiences at their events. I know it's crazy to think.
Go figure. How could that happen?
But
you follow the rules and you get a better outcome? Crazy.
Some organizers had more staff, had staff that we recommended, went for a more experienced scorekeeper as somebody they hired separately and individually, and generally, from what I heard, those events were received and found to be more successful. Whereas those who are like, I can get away with one floor judge, my store employee can help out while they sell cards and run the register, and the head judge will take care of everything else, those had some more concerns. And the feedback that FFG has received is a two-way street. Like, TOs have had the opportunity to talk with FFG. Moving forward, I don't expect apprentices to be the head judge of planetary qualifiers. The intention is that level 1 is a requirement for that, and the intention is that level 1 testing is available well before those events occur.
And this is a new game, and we're not everywhere. We're not where we want to be, but we're getting there. So,
all right, I'm just reading through chat real fast. Okay, from Private Public SA, will recommendations from TOs and other judges be weighed differently? Also, is it possible to have a form for judges to add entries on their accounts for events they run that indicate things like size, format, etc., that TOs and other judges can be directed to attach reviews and recommendations to?
Let me do the second half. We are, I mean, you can tell just going on the site right now, it's looking a little bit better. There's more features, but it's still not where we want it to be. It's going to be a while till we get, I mean, I think of what the second half of this as a judge resume or a judge LinkedIn or whatever, right? And I very much would like to have that. And it's going to be a while. Like, I've told you some things soon, some things medium amount of time. You can't see how far my hands are apart. But the full judge resume, that's more than a year out, I think.
We'll see how much we can get our web dev to do. We do have a lot of priorities. It's something that we want.
We want that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Jonah, I haven't even told you all the features I want in my judge resume thing. So,
true.
So maybe what we're dealing with is a difference in scope, too.
I mean, we also can have features roll out over time. And so we can have a list of events attached to your profile, and then what the tournament organizer was, how many players you had. This is something that I want. So this is not official in any way. Something that I'd love to have is a partnership with Melee, so that when you work an event and it's in Melee and you're assigned as a judge, that information is available and can be linked to from your account, and so that can be looked at. That's a conversation that we would have to have with the folks over at Melee. But we get along extremely well with them. Yes.
And I don't, just from a theoretical point of view, I don't see a problem with that. There's going to be a whole bunch of hyperventilating lawyers who are going to, because if anybody's watching from Europe right now, you guys are aware that privacy laws are quite strict and blah, blah. So there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen. So level 1, little bit of stuff. Judge resume, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, you take the first question.
Yeah, the first half, will recommendations from TOs and other judges be weighed differently? It depends on the experience level of the judge and the tournament organizer. Right now, any level 2+ judge and any store will be able to recommend somebody for level 1. at higher levels, when we're recommending folks for level 3, we're going to look for a level 4 or higher judge to make that recommendation, or for a tournament organizer who has successfully run multiple planetary qualifiers. Your local game store, if they get 8 players for weekly play and 32 for a pre-release, is not going to be able to recommend somebody to head judge a planetary qualifier because they don't have that level of experience. And so it'll be dependent on the experience level of the tournament organizer. Generally speaking, though, if a level requires an endorsement from either a tournament organizer of a particular scale or a judge of a particular level, those two endorsements will be treated the same because both that level of expertise is what we are looking for.
I think we've got to go faster. I'm just looking at the time.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And although this is great, and
I
could do this long, but I don't know if there's more questions in the chat right now, but we haven't even cracked the questions that have been submitted earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. From chat, I know we're still in chat, but we're making progress.
Go ahead, keep doing.
From Checkered, are there plans to get this game in big box stores like Walmart, Target, etc.?
Not that I'm aware of. I was told before when they showed me the game about a year before it came out, and so my data might be incorrect or out of date. But they told me at that time there were no plans to sell it in big box, and the reason for that is when you want a game to catch on, you really need your local game store retailer to back it. There's a good deal of risk in carrying a new game, and they wanted to win over the local retailer. And nothing sucks more. This is from my experience as a retailer, although it's quite long ago. But nothing sucks more than spending my afternoon teaching somebody how to play a game, get them set up in a little mini tournament, and then having them come back the next day and tell me how great it was to buy how they appreciate learning how to play, how much they like my play space, and they found a cheaper price at Walmart. And so, so I don't know of any change to that policy.
All right, from CM5871, are there any plans for quicker response on rules clarification other than asking on Twitter, like a direct line? So I'm just going to take this. I do have a direct line with Ryan Serrano, who writes the rules. He's the rules admiral. However, so the line through Twitter is somebody raises a question. Judges are like, we don't think we know the answer to this, or at least half of us think we know the answer and half of us think we know the other answer, and so there's disagreement. And then somebody goes to Twitter. And then it gets a response. For me, the line does exist. I see the question. I reach out to... So I have to see the question, which means I have to be active. If I'm in an event, it'll take me a couple of days to see it. I generally need to be pinged because I'm not able to read every single rules conversation. So I need to know if there's conversation happening. So it takes a couple of days for me or a day to find out about it. I shoot Ryan an email. He answers it on his next business day, or he's like, oh, that's a good question. I need to talk with the team about it. I'll get back to you in a day or two. And so while those clarifications can come through this line, and it's a little bit more formal and visible than a tweet, it does take some time. And so for fast answers, generally going through those clarifications on Twitter is what's going to be happening. I'm still sending questions to Ryan as they come in, but a lot of the times the answer is Tyler's already answered that on Twitter. All right, let's see. There's some more questions.
Let's hit 2 out of our out of the pre-submitted ones, just so we can start chipping away, because it's...
Yes. So what are Cascade's plans to increase support for the Star Wars Unlimited Judge program? And this is written, I'm not making this up, but Jonah's doing a fantastic job. And this is not a one-man job.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one-man job. And I hope Jonah appreciates that I'm mailing all the damn shirts, not him.
I do.
So yes, it's not a one-person job. Um, you, I'm not particularly public facing, so you don't see what I'm doing as well. But what this is really asking is, are we going to hire some people? And I hope this is not a promise yet, but I hope uh, around the first of the year, my hope would be that we could add two part-time people who have different kinds of skills. So that's my plans for growth. But there's a part-time programmer. There's me doing all the businessy stuff and a lot of liaisoning with Fantasy Flight, and then there's Jonah, and then actually my dog as well has joined the meeting. So got that as well.
All right, moving on to the next pre-asked question, pre-submitted. When will Cascade hear from FFG about officiating the Galactic Championship?
Um, I have, I am too busy to run a bunch of events right now. And so I never actually even applied for the Galactic Championship. And so I am expecting will I'm expecting Asmodee or Fantasy Flight, however you want to say that, to make a announcement super soon. Jonah, have you heard when that announcement's going to be made yet?
No.
I think the answer is, if level 1 testing is this kind of soon, the announcement testing is probably like that kind of soon, but I don't have specifics on I don't have specifics on a date yet. But soon.
All right. I want to go back to a couple of questions from the chat. Has there or are there any plans for different judge items to be sold to the judge community other than the shirt for now? And understandable things cannot be shared at this point. What do you have in your pocket there?
Can you make that out? Is that
I
too
can
small?
see that. I don't know if they can see
You
that.
can
That
see
looks
that?
like a neat
Does
little...
that look like a little cool little shield token?
Yeah.
I have a friend who is part of the Star Wars community who said, "Hey, it'd be kind of cool if judges had a way to get, like, can you see the little +1 +1?" I'm not in love with the +1 +1s yet. The shield part of it's really good, but he was like, "I could 3D print some shields," and then I was like, "Huh, we could have some cool tokens, and maybe we could have something fun to go along with that would be exclusive for judges." And, not ready to do more than just kind of tease a little shield at this point. But
We want to, is the short answer.
yeah, but I don't want to do this the short answer way. I know I should because we're running that. Well, I can keep going for a while, but here's the deal. Why I want to know whether or not judges are actually human beings and not a spam account is that I want to be able to offer cool things to judges. I want to be able to offer cool things to judges, and
Make sure they
not
get to judges.
and not to non-judges.
And not
And
to one person who's pretending to be 20 different people in a trench coat.
yes, exactly. What this is probably going to look like is that we will start out with some fun little knickknacks that people who are on the part of the community 3D print, because that's a fun way to make tokens. And then it will look like medium cool things, I think, is a fair way of saying that, in that there's stuff that judges probably want but other people have access to. And then, do I want to say this? Yeah, I want to say this. I want to have unique items that are only available to judges that are Star Wars themed. Okay? Star Wars Unlimited themed. And then but you know, in order to do that, that's super complicated. There's very long lead times. And then long term, I want to have amazingly cool things for judges that only judges have ability to get. And, and there's some questions in my mind like, you know, do I give higher level judges unique access, or do they get first access if there's limited quantities? And I don't know. I haven't figured all of that out. But but I am learning a lot about how to get things shipped from China to the United States. That's one of my big learning projects, and I really am hoping that we don't end up with 60% tariffs, because that would be super awkward. But we'll see what happens.
Uh two two adjusted or two attached questions. One is, will the Judge merch be available in Europe? And if it's promo cards, please let us be able to get a playset.
Well, I mean, that assumes, okay, if there were promo cards, which I'm not willing to announce
Yes,
at this
it does say
time,
if it is.
yes. But if there were, I mean, you may in fact want, a play set, and you may not, depending on, say, if it's a leader or a base or whatever, right? Um, but from my prior experience with this, I know that there are some people who just want one of a card, and other people want, you know, and other people will want a play set depending on
Or
what they're
two.
or two. Yeah, people want. So if we can do that, I will try, if this becomes a thing, I will try and balance out, the some what different people want, and give people a chance to do that. Um, I really like what I've done previously from my side of putting together in merchandise packages. And we'll talk with you guys more soon about this. But the last thing I want to do is get everybody fired up about a thing that's not going to happen for a while.
Yes. The other question, or the other part of that being, will it be available in Europe or outside of the United States?
Absolutely, 100%. It has to be available in Europe and outside of the United States. However, the devil is in the details. And I would really like I would really like an answer for shirts in Brazil, for instance, right? But Brazil's laws, textile laws, I shouldn't pick on Brazil in particular, but many countries, it's just Brazil is famous for very strong laws around importing anything that's a textile. And I get that. That's an attempt to get people to manufacture things in Brazil. But if I need 25 t-shirts or bowling shirts that are licensed by Disney, then it all becomes super complicated. I will absolutely make sure that we have distribution in Europe in some way or another. I will try to do as many countries as we can. It gets complicated though.
Yeah. Another question that I really want to answer from the chat is from
Actually, hold
Catherine.
on. I got to say one more thing. I really care about fairness.
Yes.
I do. And I don't think it's fair to have judges in Europe not have access to cool stuff. Sometimes import export stuff trumps my value of fairness, but I'm optimistic.
Yeah, and it might end up being not the exact same product in the United States and in Europe and in South America. It might be, yeah, there are Judge branded initiative counters, but since we're using a different manufacturer, because we could then go, or like, since it's being manufactured in the country, there isn't that import fee. It's going to be a slightly different thing, but it'll still be available. Um,
Absolutely.
so,
Devil's
yeah,
in the details, but we want to treat everybody as fairly as we can, and I don't get to set the law for different countries as much as I'd like to be the ruler of the world.
Alrighty. So from Cascade 2244, are you going to be headhunting judges for the first L3, L4, L5 any faster than the current progression? I understand the reasons for it, but progress has been very slow to have these leaders in the community.
Jonah, go ahead.
Short answer, no. I think that the way we can do that really is look at folks who have experience in other games and just take that leadership structure, and there's a ton of danger in doing that. When you import the leadership structure from another organization, it means that a lot of the foundation is also copied over, and a lot of bad habits, a lot of traditions that may not necessarily be good are also copied over. I say this coming from Magic. I've seen it happen in other games where a judge program has been imported over and the judge leadership is just the same people. We want to make sure that homegrown judges have the opportunity to grow here.
Let me put this slightly differently, although 100% agree with everything you said. We want, so yes, you're right. It would be great to have a bunch of L5s right now. That would be awesome. But our priority in Fantasy Flight is absolutely on board with us about this. Our priority is to give, well, it's about fairness. We want to give everybody a chance to start from where they're at and grow through Star Wars. Not, you're a high level Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic judge, and that cuts you to the front of the line. I absolutely understand why, this was something we debated a bunch. There are strengths and weaknesses on each side, and this is enough to go into it. But if you want to do a podcast and you want to interview me and Jonah for an hour, we could talk about the relative strengths and weaknesses of each of those plans.
Yeah. Beyond that, I also really want to make sure that people care deeply about the game when they're judging it. Many of my friends have been like, hey, how do I become a Star Wars Unlimited judge? And I'm like, are you looking to just expand your resume, or are you actually excited about this? And some of them are like, no, I've got the starter decks, I just haven't had a time to become a judge yet. And others are like, I just work a lot of events, and if I can say I know Star Wars Unlimited, I'm more likely to get hired. And I'm more excited about, even if they have less experience as a judge, even if they have no experience as a judge, I'm more excited for somebody who's passionate about Star Wars Unlimited, because they will stick with the game longer, they will dive into the philosophy of policy better, they'll understand strategic relevance, they will be better for the game long term. There will be, I'm sure, at larger events, at sector or regional qualifiers, whenever those happen, I have no special knowledge regarding those, head judges will need to be selected. That may be dependent, it may be folks who have experience from other games. It may also be folks who become leaders in this community, who have voices that are heard, that people recognize, who are seen as experts in rules or policy and being able to explain those to people. So there's not going to be an explicit shortcut. We want everybody to grow through the system together.
And we understand there's disadvantages. Okay, Jonah, we got to knock out 2 more questions from the previous list.
Yes.
Submitted.
Do we know if there are any plans for planetary qualifiers to be run at sealed instead of constructed, or for the tournament organizer to be able to choose between formats?
No comment.
Alrighty. Due to the difficulties and the time constraints in creating and legislating the level 1 exam, what is the drop dead date on requiring level 1 to judge Twilight of the Republic planetary qualifier events?
I don't have an answer to that question. I don't think you do either, Jonah. And I think, in fact, I'm sure you don't have an answer. And we will get you guys an answer, or folks, I should use better language, but we will get you folks an answer to that as soon as we can.
Yes. Alrighty. Are there plans to gate entrance into the judge Discord, i.e. require a sponsor to join?
Jonah,
yeah.
You can take that.
So this one, no plans. The judge Discord is not just a place for judges to communicate with each other, but it is also a place for people who are maybe interested in becoming a judge people who don't have community elsewhere, or even players who just want to ask judges questions. It does mean that there needs to be a little bit more moderation if a bad actor gets in and starts rooting around and saying things that are untrue or malicious. But we want to make sure that the space is open and available to everybody, whether they be a judge, a player, a store organizer, anything like that. Next,
Okay.
next up, I think we've gotten through most of the questions in chat. If I've missed you, feel free to drop it in again, but we're just going to go down the pre-submitted questions. How often does Cascade provide input into policy? There are some policy updates that have not made it into the original or updated master event document.
So that's a complicated question because like any other healthy relationship, right? There's formal times that we do it, and then there's lots of informal times. And I have better knowledge about, so I'm getting input, I talk with folks about things in general on a weekly basis, and Jonah talks as needed, right? So why don't you talk about what your input looks like?
Yeah, so I have gone over the documents, I've provided waves of feedback, and then when they have an update, generally they reach out and say, hey, we have this update, do you want to take a look, give us some commentary on it? And I provide that feedback. While there are parts of policy that I would like to see be written differently or be structured differently, one, what I want isn't what policy is. I'm generally talking with one or two people from Fantasy Flight at a time, and they have their organized play team, they have their design team, they have a lot of people. There are a lot more interested parties than just the people that I'm talking to. So they take my feedback and the input of the community, and they take it into consideration. So even if what we think is a great idea, there may be a reason that they're not able to implement it. There's also a lot of growth that I think could be seen in these documents. And so I have a lot of suggestions, and some of them are higher priority than others. And so I focus my feedback on those. We have the conversation around that. But it is, if I said, okay, you need to fix everything and you can't publish this without making all of these changes, it simply would never get published, and our relationship would be somewhat damaged if I tried to put the foot down like that.
I've got a complete tangent that I should have talked to you about before we started doing this, Jonah. But I don't know how much awareness there is among the judges that Fantasy Flight is currently hiring more people.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a sense of, actually, why don't we just ask chat? Do people know that?
Yeah. For you folks in chat, do you know that FFG is hiring? I think it's a couple of organized play roles.
Yes, at this time, and optimistic about more. We'll see what happens. But and I would like to encourage, if anybody or their friends meets the requirements for those positions, Fantasy Flight, because when we're talking about how much input do Jonah and I have, well, the constraint isn't that no one's listening. They are listening. The problem is that they've got, I'm going to get all geeky on you. They essentially have a ship going into hyperspace with no astromech droid, right? I mean, they need a bigger team. This is a huge effort. We need more people. They need more people. And what a great opportunity for somebody who loves Star Wars and has some organized play background to, because they're not hiring for somebody with 20 years of experience. They want folks who are relatively early in their careers who can jump in and hit the ground running and get started. And so I would seriously encourage, if you even vaguely think you're qualified or have a friend who you think would like it, then I would strongly recommend folks apply.
Yeah, I'll try to drop the links into Discord after we're done with this conversation. And while you were saying that, I typed in a couple answers to chat questions in chat because they were one sentence answers, so saving us some time.
Okay.
Alrighty. New sets and policy and rules changes will invalidate some of the current lessons. Is there a plan in place for updates to at least the text versions of these lessons? Re-recording a full video or more based on policy rules updates seems like a poor use of Cascade's dollar.
Some of it's unavoidable, though, right? I mean, I know they have more than other TCGs. They have a plan for where they're going, and more than other TCGs, Star Wars is rule structure is more straightforward than many. I think is a diplomatic way of saying that. And so, I don't know how much is going to be. I don't know, but some of it, yes. But the real answer is: do we have a plan to revisit our classes and refresh them over time? The answer is yes. And like everything else, it's a balancing effort between doing that, getting the materials out for level 2, so level 1 testing very soon, level 2. At this moment, I'm really thinking we're going to go to 3 and then get stuff out in foreign languages. But, that I flip back and forth on that priority on a regular basis. So we'll see what happens. But there's a lot of stuff we need to develop. Go ahead.
To expand on that, the way the lesson videos are designed is that they are somewhat modular. They are essentially built in PowerPoint, and then using the built-in turn into video button, I turn it into a video. And so if I need to change a slide, it's usually about re-recording a minute's worth of information, and that's it. And so while we lose our numbers on YouTube, our view count, that's not a huge cost for us, particularly on these educational lessons. I can just swap it out on Vimeo and it'll fix the embedded one on the lesson. And so it's actually relatively low cost to update a lot of this material. I've already updated because sometimes somebody will point out an error or even just like a grammatical mistake where I leave a word out or something. And I've updated those because it's about maybe 5 minutes to get it entirely updated. Furthermore, something that I've done and plan on continuing to do is in some cases, I don't need to provide so much information because if I provide everything perfectly as it exists now, it's more likely that I'm going to need to update a lesson. But for example, with the new Palpatine leader, now not all leaders have a unit on their back side. And if I had said in a lesson, all leaders have on their front side something that's in the leader zone, and then on their back side, they have a unit, I would have to re-record that lesson. And by talking to FFG, I can say, is there anything that if I leave out some details that aren't super relevant, it means that I don't have to re-record a lesson. There's a degree of vagueness that is reasonable. When I'm talking about how triggers work for level 1, I don't need to go into the super high level detail. For example, you'll notice that the level 1 lessons, and this is getting into a little bit of the nitty gritty, I don't talk about how and when we apply uniqueness layers versus units being defeated and that sort of thing. And that's something that came out in Comprehensive Rules 3. And while that was a pretty significant change to the rules and a pretty significant clarification, the way the lessons were written was with enough specificity in the areas where we had the information where it didn't change that we didn't actually need to re-record.
But I think that's a great point for me to say. First of all, Jonah's awesome. And second of all, as much as he's thinking it's a 5-minute change, that means it's 5 minutes from recording, but every time there's feedback, processing that, there's so much work to do. And we really do need to get somebody to be either Jonah's assistant or to take some of the work off Jonah's plate. And actually, Jonah, do folks know how many judges there are right now?
They do as of today because search is now available, and so they're able to see the 2,500 members on Nexus and the roughly 1,200 judge apprentices.
So, yeah. So when I'm replying to, maybe I just feel guilty about it because I am aware that I'm overworking Jonah right now, but super aware we've got to add more people on, right? And the logical place to start looking is in this community. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and I will be honest, there are a couple of slides and presentations where somebody's like, "Hey, you left out a comma there," and I'm like, you know what? It's going to be missing a comma for the next year until the rules change, and I actually need to update that. I'll take care of it in the future. Um, Alrighty. Let's see. Are there plans so that people who fail the test can take it again in the near future?
I think we answered that
I
already.
think we may have. There's a lot of questions. That's one of the things about going to chat is sometimes you'll ask questions that I have on the pre-submitted list. Short answer, yeah, you'll be able to take it again. We'll have some cooldowns, but they'll be built into the system, so you'll be able to check your profile and see when you can take the test again.
But that one is soon, but
Yes.
not. I mean, our anticipation is that you will be able to take the L1 before you can retake. We will not have more questions for the apprentice level before, like, yeah, the L1 test comes before the
Yeah.
additional question.
This is because the being able to retake the apprentice test is dependent on the same technology as being able to take the level 1 test. And so as soon as the level 1 test is available, depending on when it is, since I'm not programming it, I may have also had time to build up the apprentice pool, and so it may be the same day as level 1, but it certainly won't be sooner.
Okay.
CM5871 says, once more questions are added for retakes, if we have passed, can we retake it just for educational purposes? That's a question
That's
that
interesting. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I love the thinking behind it for sure.
I think I don't know.
Okay, so let me be straight about this. First of all, I love the thinking about it, and then but one of the points, I don't think passing a test is this magic religious experience, but and anything on the internet, all the data is going to get out there eventually. But I don't know if I want to but I don't want to encourage people to do that. I want to make it harder. So
We'll think about it.
I will think about it, but I'm leaning strongly against.
I mean, looking at other judge programs, let's say once you made level 2, you were able to create level 1 tests, and so you immediately had access to the whole level 1 pool. So I think there's a world. I don't know. I'm going to think about it, though. You've given me something to think about on my drive tomorrow.
As you drive for 10 hours tomorrow, but as judges advance in levels, we get to know them better and trust extends more. And so I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah,
I love the thinking behind it.
Maybe some form of practice test. As a tangent, something that I'm planning on doing once we're a little bit more robust is maintenance tests. So a set comes out and there's a 5 to 15 question quiz that covers rules interactions that are new in this set, whether they be specific cards, new mechanics, changes to the comprehensive rules, and that'll be a great way to keep up to date and keep sharp. And eventually those questions will either go into like a judge test pool or somewhere else. Somebody else is asking if we can get the job listings at Cascade posted to the Discord when they're available. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I expect there'll be part-time positions. I expect these are going to be positions for people. I mean, I think about people based on, how much seniority they're going to have and how much experience. I don't think we're going to be looking for people who are super, mid to late career. I think we're going to be looking for folks who are earlier in their careers, okay? Possibly, right out of high school or college students for some of them. I don't think we need to require college degrees. Just to tell you a little bit about this, I think we'll look at somebody. I mean, in my perfect world, we'll see if my perfect world happens, but we definitely need either an assistant for Jonah or somebody to take work off his shoulders. But realistically, that person's going to have to report to Jonah. So they're effectively going to be supporting Jonah in one way or another. That's one, maybe two people. And then I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I'm going to be looking for somebody who is in Portland who can help me with things like it doesn't make a lot of sense for somebody who has like 30 years of experience working for game publishers to be putting t-shirts in cardboard boxes all day long for a week. So, I'm not saying I'm too good to do that. I will do that, but I would prefer somebody to help me some. So, and I'm a little bit older, and so working remotely is a little like it's not just the physical doing stuff. I work better with people face to face, and so I'm going to be looking for somebody in Portland because Jonah's not moving to Portland, although I've tried.
Powell's is a very large draw.
Portland is an amazing place to be, and if we can just get the city collectively to pull their heads out and build a lot of housing, if it was because when I grew up, Portland was cheap, and now Portland's. I mean, it's not San Francisco or Seattle expensive, but it's close.
I'm in Boston, so the price isn't the barrier, but this is a real tangent.
Yeah, but I think people probably. I mean, my guess is either people on this or their friends are going to want to apply for these positions. So I thought it was.
Private Public SA says, would any technical or development job be remote possible?
Yes.
Yeah. If it's not something like if we're hiring somebody to help with shipping and fulfillment, essentially, that'll probably be local to Tim.
Has to be.
However, I am remote. I live roughly 3,000 miles away from Tim.
But as a huge tangent, but I-84 goes right by your house, and you can drive 84 straight across the country to my house.
Last time I was in Portland, I passed a sign that says Route 90, Boston, however many thousands of miles, and I was like, I could just take a right here, stay on that road, and then when it ends, I'll be a mile or two from my house.
I was driving. I didn't realize this. Somebody else drove the truck out, but I was driving this, freight truck back from PAX West or PAX East to my house, and I do Google Maps, and it's like, turn right, get on freeway, drive 2,700 and whatever miles, and you're home. And I'm like, oh.
Yep. That's how I get to a couple places in Ohio. It's a left, a right, and then it's drive until you are at your destination.
Yes, or pass out from exhaustion.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. How do communities with judges who are also top players balance the policy of judges not playing in events that they're judging and event credibility? Currently, since our top players are judges, any event outside of casual weeklies no longer has judges in order to adhere with policy.
We need to develop more judges. Okay. We need to develop more judges. And it is my hope that I can find lots and lots of cool things that makes the community, like naturally over time, these two groups of players and judges, although they will overlap, will diverge some, right? And as they diverge, I want to making sentences hard. I want to make being a judge high status in your community, and we do that through integrity of everybody in the program including verifying that you're actually human beings and getting endorsements. And I want to have enough goodies that judges are like, wow. So I want status. I want community. Jonah's mostly doing that through the Discord, but we also want to do some amount of physical meetups, both in the United States, well, both in North America and in Europe, uh, and then and then I want to also have enough goodies that it just people are excited about this whole thing. So I think the problem will solve itself over time. Jonah?
Yeah, I think like there will right now the people who are most interested and aware of the judge program are deeply enfranchised players. Um, Over time, that will shift. It will take a little bit of time, which is again one of the reasons why we're rolling out this program a little bit slowly. Not only can I not produce content for 5 levels overnight, but also it gives time for people to be like, you know what, I really love this game and I want to go to larger events or I want to go to planetary qualifiers. I'm just not compete like I don't enjoy competing at that level, but I want to be at these events where there are 100 people playing the game. Um, so, and of course, like having at a larger competitive event when there's serious prizes on the line, whether it be invites or even just like a box or two to first place, there is a very clear perception of conflict of interest if you are both judging and playing in the event. And so, like, it's the policy of judges can't play in an event, particularly for anything larger than weekly play, is very reasonable. And at the smaller level, you're not able to provide the best service to the person who is hiring you and to the players if you're also playing. Because if there's a call, either you have to leave the match that you're in, which damages the integrity of that match, or you take longer to get to that call, which damages the integrity of the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's
4122 asks, do we have any offices or operations in Latin America, hoping to see some support for Latin American judges?
so no offices in Latin America. And, frankly, I'd like that to um,
Can I clarify
compli-
something real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Where do we have offices and operations?
Well, I'm in my living room right now.
And I'm in
Um,
my office. Like that, this is the team, right? We don't have currently anybody in Europe or anybody in the center of the United States. Um,
we don't have anybody like, okay, we could talk about where we don't have
right.
anybody all day.
But we're a very
In,
small operation right now.
in my perfect world, we would prioritize Europe because there's so many players. Okay. So we've got a couple people in the US already. We would add somebody in Europe, ideally somebody who speaks multiple languages, including Spanish, so they can provide some degree of support for Latin America.
Spanish and
And
Portuguese.
yeah, something like. And then, um, although,
Portuguese
what?
and Brazilian Portuguese diverge enough.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
complicated, but we also have to talk about Asia too, right?
Yep.
And so so trying to you know what, I could have invite me on to your podcast and I'll talk to you about this for an hour. But let's just say I need somebody to help me with fulfillment if I ever get to share goodies the way I want to. We need somebody else. So we actually have a real office in Portland, and also there's a storage place as well. Okay, so there's a small warehouse. We need to we'll need to have somebody to work at that location part time. We need somebody to support Jonah, probably face to face, probably somebody in Boston. We need to add somebody in Asia. We need to add somebody in Europe. And then we've got the time zones covered, right? And then comes the really tough thing, which is then covering all the languages. Whew, there's a lot,
And then the
right?
regions. There's like in an ideal world, we have South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Oceania, and then a multitude of languages. But we're a team of two right now, and while we're looking to expand, it'll be a while, if ever.
Well, we're probably never going to get to the ultimate dream, but we've got it. We've got to get more. We've got to get more, and we're not ready to do that yet.
Yeah.
So soon, I hope, but not again. I want to like. There's soon for the level 1. There's soon for apprentice and additional questions. There's soon. There's many varieties of soon, and this one's not real soon.
Yeah. Um, all right. What incentive do players who both already agreed to a gameplay resolution or fix have to call a judge when it will most likely result in 2 warnings? At a glance, this policy seems mainly to help players who cannot agree to a remedy for the situation instead of calling out a play error.
Jonah.
Yeah. You don't want to answer this one?
I mean, I could,
Yeah. Um,
but I would be very rambly for
yes.
sure.
The short answer is that's kind of okay. Like if somebody says, I play Forlom and they exhaust the resources necessary, and they're like, wait a second, I put Zuckuss into play, not Forlom. Do you mind if I actually put the card that I said I was going to play into play? And their opponent's like, yeah, absolutely. Nobody needs to get involved. Judges are there to mediate disputes. We are not there to be police. We're not there to, like, as long as the game gets to a legal game state, and everybody is happy about it, I'm happy about it. This does mean that very frequently, like, a player will, like, there will be so many player disputes that the players are able to resolve themselves. However, the role of the judge is to be that person in case they're not able to resolve a dispute. And at competitive events particularly, and as events get larger and as communities get larger and people don't know everybody anymore, judge calls are going to become more frequent. And a warning or a penalty point isn't that huge, that it isn't a significant factor at the end of the day to make sure that the game is fixed in a fair and effective manner. There are a lot of people who will, right now people don't know who judges are. A lot of people are coming, this is their first TCG, or they're coming from games that don't have robust judge programs, and so they don't call a judge because they feel like calling a judge will result in long-term penalties and ostracization from the community and being seen as a jerk. But one of the things that we're trying to do is convince players that we're here to help. And we do that by explaining the impact of what a warning is. A warning isn't a problem unless you do something a lot. And most of the time, it's, hey, I noticed my opponent did something weird. I don't know how to fix this. Or, I don't know how to fix this in a way that's fair to both of us. In my ideal world, my opponent just loses their unit that I thought should be dead, but it actually shouldn't be dead. So that's, how do we fix this when I thought it had lethal damage on it, but there was some effect that was giving it more power, and so can I change my action because of communication, whatever. There's a lot of complexity in judge calls. But if players fix it on their own and it's legal, that's fine, is the short answer. I can ramble about that forever.
But I'm afraid we've talked people's ears off.
Yes. Alrighty. That finishes the list of pre-submitted questions. We've gone through all of those. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so Tim and I are just going to ramble for a minute or two, which is well within our abilities, just to give y'all an opportunity to toss in any last-minute questions. Tim, is there anything that you want to add, anything that you want to say to the community? You teased something a little bit earlier. Did you get to...
I think I've said as much as I'm able to say today, but very, very soon, very soon, I'm hoping to have a bigger announcement and talk to you about my cool little tokens. And since I really like playing Luke Skywalker, I will need shield tokens. So anyway, so that's a thing. But really what I want to say is thank you. I know that this is a lot of work, and and as a community, the judges have been super, super positive, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So thank
Yeah,
you.
it's been really great. Like everybody in the community is just wonderful, and it's not just because they say that I'm good at my job and I'm doing a lot of hard work. They are every judge that I've met or talked to has been genuinely very passionate about this game and cared deeply about seeing it succeed.
Hey, you know what? Can I ask you guys something though? Especially if you happen to be in Europe right now. But we want to do some meetups over the next year. Okay. Um, so Essen Spiel is or is it Spiel at Essen? Whatever. Anyway, that is definitely a what we know that's one of the shows that we'd like to go to. We'd like to do meetups. We'd like to do a couple meetups in person in Europe, and we'd like to do a couple in the United States. I think Gen Con's a no brainer. I like San Diego Comic Con.
We're busy this
However,
year.
is that public, by the way?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, awkward. Although I'm going to San Diego Comic Con anyway,
yes.
so we might do. I do something in San Diego, and Jonah does a meetup at
Do you
So
have any events coming up?
no, no,
Okay.
I do no.
Um,
I have taken a huge step back from running events.
yeah. I mean, you can go to events and not work. Did you
Really,
know that? Yeah, I some people do it. I don't.
I don't know if I've done that in
Decades.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. But anyway, if there are events that you think would be good for us to do a meetup at, let Jonah know. Let
Yeah,
me know.
shoot me an email or
Or
send me a message on Discord.
Tim at Cascade, or just questions at Cascade.
Yeah. I have a bunch of events coming up, so if folks want to meet me at probably not a ton of you are going to be at Eternal Weekend because that's an old school Magic event this weekend. But in a couple weeks, I'll be at. What's up?
But it's awesome.
It is very awesome, and it's going to be huge. We have close to 1,200 players already registered for the Legacy event, which is going to be crazy. But I'm going to be at PAX Unplugged. I'm going to be at a handful of face-to-face shows in Toronto and Ottawa. I'll be doing some Star Wars there, some Magic, but they'll have Star Wars at those shows. I'll be at SCG Atlanta doing Star Wars. I'll be at SCG Portland not doing Star Wars. Um, but yeah, I'll be at a bunch of stuff. Please send us suggestions. We got a couple more questions. Uh, Lethologicality. Oh boy, that's a lot of syllables, and I think I got them all. Can we send you a list of unanswered rules questions so you can use your line to FFG to get a consistent answer for us? Yes, please. Shoot me either a direct message with all of those unanswered questions or an email, and I'll see what I can do on that. Um, Wolfstrider 562. I'm going to translate your question a little bit to make it a little bit easier for us to answer. Is there one card that you would like to see either judges get as a gift or just a card to see in the game as a very cool card?
Yes. Wait, I'm
The
supposed to say
question
the
is,
card?
what is it?
Yeah, I can't. Let's just say it would not be prudent for me to answer that question at this time for other reasons. But I shit. I think I've got to keep my mouth shut and let Jonah answer that
Yeah.
question.
I would love to see um like a judges being able to get something like rule with respect or recruit, things that have like really flavorful like connotations and just being like part of this community and developing the community. If there's just like an anything that I want to see, like I want to, these aren't like cards that exist, but I'd love to see like a Jaina Solo or a Revan. Those would just be like near the top of my list. Some Wraith Squadron stuff would be great, but
You know what? Here, let me say this. I am like, what got me into trading card games was the art first. I am a huge, huge art fan. What I'd like to see is iconic characters done by the top tier artists. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Alrighty, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I just want to say thank you, Tim, for spending the afternoon, evening, morning, whatever it is, where you are and wherever our viewers are, for spending time. And of course, to all of you who've been in the chat, thank you so much for your questions. We literally can't answer them without you asking them. We want to come back in probably mid-December, I think, to do another one of these. So if you have more questions, build up those questions.
And also feel free to like let Jonah know if you think we should do this more often, less often. Like give us feedback
Yes.
because we really we really do need to know what's the right pace for this and other stuff, right? And for that matter, if you have a sense that there's a priority that I'm not acting on or we're not acting on, just email me. Just tim@cascadegames.com and let me know. I'm not going to tell you I'll automatically do it, but I do work really hard to be responsive to feedback.
Yeah. I also, like, if you ever have concerns about my behavior again, please reach out to Tim. I I also wish you'd reach out to me and say, hey, you're doing this, I don't like it, and I can see what I can do to improve. But yeah, please reach out to myself or Tim if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. The last one we did of these was like early September, so it's been about 2.5 months. I think we'd like to be a little bit more regular because I think we wanted to do like an hour each time, and we're closer to an hour and a half each time. So if we did it on a monthly basis, we could maybe cut it down to an hour and 20 minutes. I think we could shave 10 minutes off if we did it every month.
Jonah, what's driving the what's driving the length is mostly my answers and what I'm trying to do. My attempt is I want to give people a bunch of context, including that's what I'm trying to do by saying I'm giving.
Yeah.
I want everybody to have a ton of context wherever I can. And so, yeah, we're just going to keep going over time.
I mean, of course we are. That fits both of us. Both of us are, as we mentioned, I think in the last one, huge on transparency, and so we're going to be as transparent as possible and talk about details as much as possible. And sometimes we get into details that nobody needs to know, but we know, and we want to share them because,
Well, it's fun. And also I think somebody, although no one needs to know, somebody somewhere cares.
we got a
Maybe.
bunch of nerds here, a bunch of people who like the nitty gritty. So it's great to have them all.
Yes. Well,
Fantastic.
thank you, everybody. No last questions.
No last
We're all done?
questions. All right, have a good one, and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.
Take care.